at the foot of your bed before you go to bed. It's less likely that you're going to fall asleep after, right? So we have to be practical about some of these things. Say behind your prayers before you get to your bed, right? But prayer should be the very first thing that you say when you get up in the morning. As you're getting out of bed. You know, I like a little confession, you know. I have a great devotion to Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. Now, Our Lady of Seven Sorrows is actually the patroness of exorcists. And in my bedroom, across my bed, there's a prayer stand, and I have an icon there. And the first thing I do when I get out of bed, literally, is go and stand at that stand and say the 7 Hail Marys in honor of the seven sorrows of Our Lady. And Our Lady has given a very special promise to those who have a devotion and who spread the devotion to her seven sorrows. Promise to be there to protect them against the attacks of the evil one. Right? So look up the promises of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. Right? And by the way, Our Lady of Seven Sorrows happens to be the patroness of Slovakia. Yes, sister. Actually, my father's side of the family is from Slovakia, so it's pretty as well. But anyway, so those are the kinds of things that they're really powerful tools that are there that we can take advantage of. But we need to know about these things. We've got to read about these things. We have to study these things and to know how to engage this warfare, these attacks that are coming against us. So a person could be oppressed. So as I said, prayer, sacraments, all of those things are so vitally important. And if we're having real serious problems, this is another thing. I try to get the word out there. The exorcist's job is really he's like supposed to be the end man, the final stop. Okay? And I get calls all the time from people, they're feeling different attacks from him. Call your pastor, call your priest, talk to them. There's a lot of stuff that they can do for you, but they're not coming to me first, right? I'm the last resort when we have a really serious problem. So demonic attacks, they are real, and we have a lot of tools that we can use against them. So we also have these, what we would call demonic obsessions. Very serious in terms of, very similar in terms of people who have obsessions about anything. And I oftentimes say there's two ways in which most people tend to deal with the devil. Either we tend to ignore him altogether, pretend that if I don't think about him, he doesn't exist. He only wishes that we then he has even more control. Or on the other hand, we tend to have a situation where we see the devil behind every tree and under every rock. Everything that goes wrong, we want to blame the devil. Well, that's not right either, all right? Because there is such a thing as human free will. We have the ability to make choices. Sometimes we can make wrong choices. And the devil can use those. He can manipulate those. He can use those against us. So, again, we have to be careful in how we approach the devil. One important thing I say all the time is this. Never be afraid of the devil. Never. That's exactly what he wants. Right? Because he feeds on our fear. He feeds on our negative emotions. Never be afraid of him. Respect him. Realize that you are engaged in battle against him. But never fear him. So that's exactly what he wants. So you have these demonic oppressions, demonic obsessions, where our minds are constantly on that negative kinds of things. No, we have to focus on the love of God and the mercy of God and the grace of God, and not on the negative things. But unfortunately, the times, the culture, the situation in which we live today, the demonic is all around us. You can't avoid it. It's everywhere. The media, it's down the street, it's all over the place. So it's hard to avoid, but we have to be at least attuned and aware so that we can avoid those kinds of openings in which he will try to attack us. Right? So those are, like I said, demonic oppression, demonic obsession. There are also what we call infestations. All right, so, for example, let me ask this question. I love picking on the little guys. Oh, you got a Terror of Demons t-shirt on. Good job. That was right. is actually a demon who is pretending to be a soul in purgatory, right? So you can have situations, for example, where there be a haunted house, let's say, right? Or in hospital haunted, yes. Places can be haunted. And usually it's because something had happened there. Many times I've been called in, people are having all kinds of unusual occurrences in their home. Things falling off the wall, things moving across the room by themselves. A lot of times what happens is a person, they have committed suicide in that home, right? And that is a kind of an opening, so to speak, if you will, that spiritual realm. What happens a lot of times is, if we know what the situation is, we have a mass set for that person. That tends to take care of the problem. But sometimes, as I said, demons will pretend. How can I tell the difference between the soul of purgatory and a demonic manipulation? Well, first of all, souls in purgatory always will appear as a full human person, right? And second of all, they don't engage in conversations. If anything, God only allows them there to ask for prayer to free them from purgatory. Demons, on the other hand, can show up in all kinds of things. Shadows, figures, grotesque forms. Or sometimes you only see like from the waist up or on your head, face. And if that happens, you know that in fact they are demons. And they want to engage in conversation because they want to get your attention. They want you to trust in them. They want you to be connected to them in a certain kind of way. Right? And so you have to be very, very careful. Because demons will go after you. But again, you have to ask the question, why? What's going on here? Now, sometimes it happens that little kids, like that little one with the sleep over there, right? Sometimes little ones like that will say, Mommy, I see something up there on the corner of the room, things like that, or there's a monster in my closet. We need to take those things seriously. Because little children, I don't know about you guys, but little children sometimes have they're open to, sensitive to that spiritual, supernatural reality that I was talking about. And what happens a lot of times is as you grow up, you kind of lose it. Because you don't nurture it, you don't exercise it. So it kind of goes to the background. It's still there. It's still there. But nevertheless, if we don't take it seriously, then we lose touch with that. But little kids can see and hear things that they, that movie, I never actually saw it, but I know that famous line from the movie is, what we call the fifth sense. It's not what we're talking about. I see it. Yes, it's very possible. So that does happen. So why would, a place be haunted, so to speak? Well, as you mentioned, one, maybe there was a suicide that occurred there. Or two, it could be a situation where it happens a lot these days. We encounter this especially down in the southern parts of our diocese, where these new housing developments are being built over old Indian burial grounds. And violations of those sacred places is causing all kinds of infestations to occur within those homes. So it does happen. So there could be a lot of different reasons why a place may be haunted. Now, of course, in our diocese, one of the most haunted places is Harrisburg, because of the Civil War battle that occurred there. And the biggest mistake that so many people are making is they want to go down there and they want to go on a ghost tour. I had a call one time years ago from a man in New York. And he said, Father, I'm hearing this voice in my house. And it's a woman's voice. Like, I can't hear what she said. I just hear the voice. So I went there a number of times. And we met all over the place. We couldn't pinpoint what was going on. One day, I was at the door to leave, and I heard the voice. So I knew it was real. And I turned around to him and I said to him, Tim, I recognize it. I heard her. I know what you're talking about. I said, now what we have to do now is determine, is this a soul in purgatory, or is it a demon pretending to be a soul in purgatory? someone out that will know how to approach the situation. So I asked, well, what did he do? He called up a paranormal investigating team. And they came in, and they set up their microphones, they set up their recording things. And literally, all hell broke loose in that house. And he called me to panic. I said, what's going on? What do I do? What do I do? I said, Tim, you issued an open invitation to hell. You said, okay, here's our cameras, we want to see you, we want to hear you, come on in. And they did. Excuse me, they didn't ask me to entertain a defense. Yeah, that's what happens sometimes. In fact, that's what really happens a lot of times, is that people will tend to call these other kinds of groups or whatever you want to call them, and when they don't get any results or it gets worse, then they call freaks. It's the other way around. And it's backwards. You got to call the freaks first. As I say, start off with the parish priest, and that's how it's supposed to happen. So anyway, so those infestations, those hauntings, they are real, and they do happen, and there can be many reasons why it happens, and how the reason for it determines how we approach the issue, how we try to heal the situation. I'll give you an interesting example case. One of the things that we're running into a lot is getting called, first of all, with people who are not Catholic. And they will go to their own ministers or whatever and can get nowhere. And so then they tell them, call them priest. So there was a case one time, some years ago, where a woman was experiencing all kinds of strange phenomena in her home, not Catholic. And so she called her minister, a woman, who came to the house and did all kinds of prayers and nothing else. So the minister said, well, call the Catholics, they deal with that stuff. You know, so they called the local Catholic priest. He went to the house, did the prayers, there's minor exorcism, deliverance prayers, nothing happened. So they called me. So I went to the house several times, and we weren't getting anywhere. So I said to this lady, I'm going to take you to the Catholic Church. And fortunately, we were able to sit in the cry room, so that it didn't disturb anybody else, but we were certainly in view of the Blessed Sacrament. And I was praying over her, and then something hit me. And I said to her, is there anything from your past, anything that you're holding on to? Remember going back to what I said before. And she said, well, yes, I was another, they abused me. I don't mean sexually, but emotionally and all kinds of other ways they really abused me. I said, have you ever forgiven them? Well, how can I forgive them? What they did to me, they hurt me so badly. I said, there's the problem. You are giving demons an opening into your life because you refuse to forgive even something that happened many years ago. So she said, I will really try. Okay. So I got a call, things were great, things were quiet, she was very happy. So I figured, well, she must have, done what I asked her to do. A couple of years go by, and I get a phone call from Catholic priest. Now it's a different priest after the transfer. And he says to me, I got a phone call from Mrs. So-and-so. And she says, things are acting up again in her house. And I said, yeah, I'm familiar with the case. I said, go there and see what you can do. But she did. And by the way, I'm really, really proud of the priest of our diocese. Our guys are really, really good, because what they'll do is people will call them and they call me and say, this is what's happening, what should I do? Tell me what to do. And I said, it's great, because the more that I can allow them, because they're great, they can handle these things. So I said, this is what you should do, and they follow through it. Of course, the priest is able to do it. So anyway, he calls me, he goes to the house, he calls me, and then he calls me back and said, Mrs. So-and-so finally told me that there were certain things that she never told others either. The first was the fact that the first thing she did was call in one of these paranormal investigating teams, and they did cleansing of the house. The second thing was, her husband was a practicing 33rd degree Mason. She never told me those things. So no wonder. Again, talk about lies. You lie by, upset mission too. You don't tell the whole truth. As a result of which there remained an opening, which eventually came back. Because sometimes the demons will play with you. They make it seem like everything is good, everything is fine, everything is settled down. And when you least expect that, boom, they come running back. Right? So that's why we need to protect ourselves in every way possible. So I just touched on a couple of things in terms of, what are some of these portals that open the gateway to the demonic? And, again, I mentioned the fact that people today are all into the occult, into all kinds of different sorts of things, paranormal and all that other kind of nonsense. Sometimes, yes, Masonic organization, the Masons are purely demonic. Right? Cannot be a Catholic and be a Mason. Absolutely forbidden. That's church law. Right? And not only that, but the Masons are demonic. But you only find it out as you get up to the higher levels. Right? And sometimes there's a history of a family, maybe the individual isn't a Mason, but their grandfather was, or their great-grandfather was, and now they're wondering why there are problems in the family line. Right? I had, one of the curses that comes upon a person for violating, the oaths and promises of the Masons is that you will be strangled. I had a person one time who woke up with strangle marks around her neck. Very physical marks. We knew because this was because of Masonic involvement in the family background. Another one that people get really upset about is yoga. Bad news. Purely demonic. And people say, why just do it for the exercise? Doesn't matter. Every single posture of yoga is in fact a form of adoration of a human deity. Some people will say to me, well, we say prayer before we do the yoga. I said, no, that's not prayer. You're playing games here. You're using magic here. You don't want to do what you need to do. So if you run into a problem, don't call me until you're willing to make a change here. You've got to give this up. Yoga is a purely demonic practice. Right? So that's another one of those things that we talk about. So it can lead little by little by little, not only to oppression, but eventually, interestingly enough, to be perfectly honest with you, for understanding, I could not hear what maybe was reading in terms of my biography, but I do have a PhD in psychology. I have 3 degrees in psychology. And so, one of the things that happens, in terms of, we have to look at some of these causes that are behind some of these things. And I completely lost the track of where I was going. Anyway, so persons, you lead up little by little to these various forms of demonic influence and demonic attack. And all I say, what happens is sometimes, we have situations in which people will actually experience, they'll wake up and they'll say, I'll find a handprint or scratches in places that they can't reach. There's all kinds of manifestations that occur. One time, one of my colleagues it was a psychotherapist in the Midwest, and he sent me a photograph. He said, well, one of my clients woke up this morning and there was this writing on her body. And he said, I don't know what it is or what it means. She don't know how it got there. He said, can you have any idea what this is? And I looked at her and went, yes, I know exactly what it is. It was almost like a burn mark, but it was in perfect Greek, and the word was Daedon, translated as legion. You know the story of the scriptures. That's bad news. She was in trouble. So anyway, I was able to help them understand what it was that was going on there. There's cell disease and deep problems. So little by little, they can reach the point where a person, for whatever reason, finally opens the door to allow the demon to come in. And they take possession. Right? They take possession. battle, real battle that goes on within the person itself. So, how can I tell if a person is actually possessed? The church gives us several important signs that we look for in order to see whether it really is a demonic influence. The first is that the person has knowledge of things that they should not know, that they would not know in any other way. The second thing is they exhibit, if you want to call it, supernatural physical abilities, things that are way beyond their capabilities as a human being. Third one would be aversion to sacred objects, holy water, those kinds of things. And the fourth one is the ability to know or even speak in languages that they have never studied or never been influenced by. So those are the kinds of signs that we look for in a person to determine whether or not a person is actually possessed. I'll give you one simple example. One day I was interviewing a person, and I told her to come and meet me in church. The only time she could come into the church was when I said you must meet me in church. So I was in the pew, and she was in the pew behind me, and two of my team members were in the pew behind her. Come on, two team members, yes. One of them was a doctor, who happens to be here, I think. Where are you, Liz? Are you here? Oh, yeah, there she is. I can see her hand back there. Right? If you want to get the person next door, she's actually here. All right. She's behind her. And during the course of my conversation with this person, she has this bag, not a purse, but a bag, in which she has a first-class weapon. And she just gently leans forward, replaces the bag, and it's the back of the pew for the person to sit there. And she screams, flies up into the air, falls into the aisle, and says, "What was that? What did you touch me with?" Right, Liz? Yeah. First of all, an aversion to the sacred. Second of all, knowledge of something that she had no idea was even there. Right? And that she felt it and responded to it. So those things do happen, and they are real. Then another one I remember one time, and I always pick on the priest for this, because it has to do with holy water. Right? Now you see, there's a modern form of blessing the holy water, which is just going to be blessing the water. But the traditional form of blessing the holy water involves a number of different items. First of all, the exorcism and the blessing of salt, the exorcism and the blessing of water, the commingling of the salt and the water, creating a new creature and a blessing of that creature, and then a prayer of thanksgiving for the creature which we have. So I had a lady, again, I was interviewing one day, and I sprinkled her with holy water, and she jumped. And she said, "That's stung. What was that?" Well, I've been blessed with holy water lots of times. What was different about that? She felt salt that was in the water. Exorcised salt. So those are some of the things that we can see and experience. Yes, I've seen people who will levitate, go up into the air. People who climb up a wall. Sometimes people say, "Do you like Spider-Man?" I say, "Yes, exactly. And it does happen. Those are real things." So the demonic is all around us. We need to be aware of it. So, what do we do? Okay, so what do we do to protect ourselves? First of all, as I said, be aware that you are under attack. Number one. Number two, right? The use of holy water. Make sure you have holy water at your home, at the doorway, when you come in and out of the house. Bless yourself with the holy water. Right? The St. Benedict medal. Very, very powerful, right? In the modern calendar, just celebrating St. Benedict's Day on Saturday. St. Benedict was, again, very powerful against the demonic. And again, it's important because I've had this happen too many times. People will contact me and they'll say, I went to my priest and asked him to do the blessing of the St. Benedict medal. He just did a special blessing. I said, no. The St. Benedict medal is the only medal the church has that first must be exorcised before it is blessed. There is a special ritual for the exorcism and blessing of the Saint Benedict nun. Right? So make sure that the priest knows what he's talking about. Right? You take the medal to him, ask him, please do this medal for me. And as I said, sometimes they'll call me and ask me, the priest doesn't know it, where do I find it? It's out there. But, and it doesn't have to be the exorcist that does it. Any priest can do that particular blessing. So the blessing, exorcism and blessing of St. Benedict medal, very important. Another one is the brown scapular. Right? Brown scapular, very important, but again, there's a common misconception here. People think that, they'll come up to me and they'll say, Father, will you bless my brown scapular for me? And I say, no. They're like horrified, Why won't you bless my scapular? Because many of you who are my age or older, or even around me, remember that when we were little, on the day that I made my first confession, we were enrolled in the brown scapular. Okay? And that still is the case. In other words, the brown scapular isn't something you just get put on. You have to be enrolled in it. Right? And then the consequence of that is this, that if that tears or breaks or whatever, wears out, just get a new one. At a meeting on Saturday with the secular Carmelites, somebody came and asked me to bless their scapular. I said, no. She said, well, this is a new one. My old one wore out. I said, no. Because it's the person who is blessed. All right? The person who is blessed. Your scapular is blessed at the time that you are clothed in it, and then it wears out. And having been the chaplain of the nuns in Harrisburg for so many years, that's exactly what happens with the nuns. On the day of their clothing, you bless them, you bless their scapular, and that's the last time you bless the scapular. Because it's the person who is clothed. It's not the scapular itself. So make sure that you are enrolled in the scapular. If you don't remember, ask Father to do it for you again. If you do remember, just make sure that you get a scapular and use it. Salt. Bless the salt. Exercise salt. I had a lady contact me. She said, I have this real problem. So I can't sleep at night. There's this bird that keeps flying at my window all night long. It keeps me awake. And no matter what I do, so she said, I need to move to another room. And it came follow me. It's still in the other room. She said, I don't know what to do. So what I did was, I gave her some exercise salt. And she put it on the window ledge of those windows on the outside. And she said, the bird came the first night, just a little while ago left. And the second time, whatever. She said, I haven't seen him since. Right? So there are many kinds of tools, sacramentals, and other kinds of spiritual things that the church gives us that we can use to help protect ourselves. But please be careful. Don't fall into superstition. All of these things must be backed by prayer and faith, because that's the real power behind this, the real power that we have against the enemy. You're involved in warfare, whether you like it or not. So, if you have any questions or problems, contact the pastor, and he can contact me. Okay, I think I've summed it up. So, if there are questions, we'll be happy to continue that for you.
She's going to the car.